Tuesday, the 7th of April 2020. Here I am at Hornby Island. I come to you from the whaling station, which is close to Helliwell, the provincial park that's here on Hornby Island. And it's a wonderful day, and it's also a full moon night as well. So it was a beautiful day. I just left the ferry and just drove for about 15 minutes from the dock, and it's so beautiful. There's a little bit of a haze, but I hope that this will go away. And there's the horizon. It was such a blue sky today. The water was so fresh, and you got waves lapping on the beach. And I am just going to show you a close-up of the rock here on the beach. Look at that. It's moss and colorful patterns once again. You see these little holes here in the rock. I'm just going to show you this little puddle here. It's a stone puddle, and it looks so clear, undisturbed. There are some life forms here, and my intent is to show you these micro beauties, all of the little formations here in the rock so close to the beach, where there's a lot of driftwood still lying around, and that talks about a lot of history here. Natural formations, once again, not man-made, natural formations. So I'm going to just show you the length and breadth of this little area, some moss, and notice the colorful patterns here in the rock. Just be careful walking about here. You don't step on the moss accidentally. So there you see another patch, and all over Hornby, it is so characteristic of this area alone. And this is not found on the other southern Gulf Island beaches, where it's mostly hard rock or loose rock, but here the rock is firm, and the action of the waves is so profound. Now look at that. I'm just going to take a close-up of those tiny little formations here, and look at that, the art of nature. And it's so interesting to see some of them exist in pairs. It's almost like there are some friends, and each of these little puddles has company, almost to reflect human behavior. And that's the closest parallel that I can find in these patterns. Or you would call it a paw print, say from some fancy animal that might have stepped onto this beach. So there's also a little bit of roots and weed and grass, and that is so lovely, so characteristic of Hornby Island. I'm just going to walk around here and show you more. And look at that. That is either seaweed or a combination of seaweed and moss, and it's so beautiful. To me, the air is so crisp, and I am actually treated to this beautiful evening after day's work. Today was a fantastic day overall, and I kept still wondering how long I have this time, especially with the pandemic, or what you call pandemic proportion, that's been launched out on our planet, in every single country, nation, family, people, all touched with this terrible thing. But at the same time, a lot of positives. There's a lot of hope, a lot of inspiration that comes from people. And I want to show you this as a sign of encouragement, that nature and life is very much there. I'm just going to pause for a bit so you can actually listen to the lapping of the waves here on the beach. There you go. Hello again. So that is the beauty of nature, and it is there for you. If you had watched my other videos, I did elaborate a little bit on the significance of what you see and the times under which we live in, and there is always a sign of hope. And I am under the impression that you have sort of wrapped your heads around what's going on with all of this, and I'm here to assure you from the whaling station here in Hornby Island that everything is well, nature is well, the beaches are fine, and they're actually being restored with a lot of beauty, a beauty that awaits just for your return. You have everything waiting for you, and this may be a time of peace, quiet, reorientation, renewal, and a time when we can ask some deep questions to ourselves and to the wider world. Oh, look at that. That is a tree stump washed ashore, and I'm just showing you the distant view from here, and I'll step close and I'll probably go around it if I can. I'll show you how beautiful that is. So I hope you had a wonderful day so far, and you were able to sort of readjust to your new schooling schedules, and reestablish all of your order and protocol with classwork, learning, structured learning, logging in, and all of that. So I'm so happy that you had a fantastic day yourself. It's almost like you have rediscovered all of it, you know, in spite of this crisis. Oh, look at that. I can see a rich carpet of green by this tree stump, and nature has a way of determining where everything should be. It is perfect and it's appropriate. Okay? Now, as far as the deeper questions are concerned, you may have had some time to think about everything that's happening. Quiet time, I would say, while we reorient ourselves and understand, get our heads wrapped around everything that goes on. We hear a lot, we see a lot, we read a lot about what is perceived and the path that we're following in undermining the fundamental causes of this crisis. You and I could look at it in different ways, and just like looking at this beach and everything that lies around here, my effort is to have a localized interpretation of nature and its beauty, of the Creator that can actually hide little secrets, little things in little pockets in our own part of the world, and it speaks to each one of us in a different way. I could explain, I could just show you a glimpse of what I see, but what you see might be entirely different. You could see sometimes a silver lining in a cloud. There's no clouds today though, so it is one big silver line, I would say. So look at that, the waves coming to the shore, and they carry a message, and a message of hope, of peace, of tranquility, and joy, of impending joy that is to unfold this week, this Holy Week. It's a special week. So I am here trying to elaborate a little bit on the interpretation of what all this means in a way that applies to each one of us. To me, and this is what I will explain after a day's work, I have not edited this video. I'm just standing here at the edge of the rock and talking to you, and I have some questions myself. I'm going to explain to you these questions I have in my head. Now, we do hear a lot. This is being told to us. It comes over mass media, it comes over TV, it comes over the internet, it comes in different forms. Now, do you completely believe everything? Or would you have your own thought process or research? Would you reflect? Would you analyze? And would you understand and accept things the way they're perceived or even shown to you? And that's my question to you today. Just like you looked at nature and had your own interpretations, I would expect that you have some time to look at all the data because you have the time and come up with a conclusion that is rational, that is explainable, and which is by far convincing, a convincing truth. Now, to me personally, my faith or my belief in everything that revolves around the cosmos, the rising of the sun, its setting, how birds flock together, and how immunity building is a communal effort and not of isolated individuals. Although physically isolated, we are one as a human race, and as communities we progress. But still, not knowing what's going on around us is quite baffling indeed, despite all the progresses that humanity has achieved in hundreds and hundreds of years. So, my question is this now, if this were to be perceived and interpreted and brought to us, with the conclusion, it should not be a result of panic. It should not be motivated by fear or some form of government that wants to have some ulterior motive. There are different nations going through this at this time, and each nation faces it differently. And I'm just about wondering why each nation has to look at the same problem in many different angles. And I would prefer that the global community not react and not have too many conspiracy theories, but come around in an organized fashion. There are other people that have to be more concerned about loved ones and protecting and politicizing all of these things. But definitely there should be room for common sense and goodness to prevail like it has prevailed through the centuries, through war, famine, pestilence, and all of that. Even in pestilence, there has been anecdotes, and these are proven methods that have been employed through the ages. So I'm hoping that we can benefit from all of that and come to a rational conclusion. And all essential activity can be restored in a manner that is fitting, is healthy. A few things that have come out of this experience in the last few weeks wants or actually warns people to stay isolated and say 6 feet apart, wash hands with soap and water, use hand sanitizers, don't congregate, don't have public events which brings people within range of common spaces, so anyone's sneezing or exhalation affects another and so on. But we should be wrapping our heads around once again and figuring out a way by which we could clinically prove and demonstrate that we can still achieve common objectives as one humanity. So this is my thought for you, and I would like you to think about it and come up with some real rational conclusions. I'm hoping that some essential activity can still go on. Certainly, I'm involved in one of the essential services with the ferry system, and I go about work like nothing happened once in a while. And then I remember that here's a time, and I have to get back to the proper protocol and remember that although I perform my daily duties, with teams and engineers and navigators and so on, we still have to remember protocol. We have to stay safe and 6 feet apart and not put ourselves in danger, not put our families and communities in a lot of peril. So this is time for us to focus and come to a very rational decision making and communal gathering. Now, the the trouble is that a lot of people have waited for authorities or something beyond their realm for answers, and people have sort of lost the ability to contribute in a historical fashion, congregate their thoughts, their intentions in a more traditional way. We have instead turned to mass media for our information. We have relied on very channeled and approved sources of information. So we have to put all of that to the test in the context of maybe a few hundred years, almost the context of, say, the First World War, the Second World War, the plagues, and so on. There have been instances of massive paradigm shifts in the way people think, behave, but we should look at it with a very passionate, committed, and determined response, and come up with pragmatic solutions that will benefit societies and give us a deep answer. I did hear on the radio when I was driving up about a pastor in the United States that opened his church to 75 people, and there was a lady that was being interviewed who said, "I am washed by the blood of Christ, so I do not need to quarantine." But this is, I think, in a way irresponsible, but I wish she had explained how and why when they had congregated less than 6 feet apart. In my opinion, it is better that people come together and find a clinical or a proper way to congregate, maybe having the proper distance, the proper notifications to authorities, and proper organization, discussion, and still being able to achieve all of those things that they stand for. So this is the Holy Week once again, so there are still lots of preparations all over the world for Easter Sunday, Good Friday, Holy Thursday, and I'm hoping that there is an answer to this. Oh, by the way, I should show you the rising of the full moon. Today happens to be the full moon, and there it is from behind those trees over there, okay? So like I said, the rising of the moon is significant. It actually shows the rise and fall of man. From within nature, we rise, we fall in cycles. So there are times when we are down, and then there are times when we rise. So that is the significance that I see with the rising of the full moon, with me standing here today by the edge of the beach and wondering what's going on with our world. So I want you to think, and please comment and let me know what you think is happening to our world and how can we get out of this situation using the science, using our good sense, coming together as communities and defending our core beliefs and our structures, our friendships, and being able to be one with nature and get back to a sense of order and well-being, and without feeling isolation, being depressed, or losing all sense of hope. I'm very hopeful. I'm so glad that we have this time. We have to look back and make amends. But when all that is over, we must rise. We must rise like that full moon over there. We should come up from behind the trees and actually get involved with solutions, with society, and be able to lead, be brave. When I was a child, I just loved stories of brave people, brave young men and women who withstood a lot of challenges and obstacles and actually went on to redefine society. We actually live being benefited and being blessed with all of the toil and the sacrifice of all these people. So I hope and I wish something like that comes up at this time. It may not come from a scientific community or from authorities. It will come from ordinary people. It will come from the people that you least expect would come up with an answer. It might start in some rural village. It might come from a kind of people that were not expected to have a remedy that people were stereotyped to assume where it would come from. So that is my thought. I'm hoping that an answer to this will come from something so simple, from somewhere, someone who dared do something. And definitely it will come from a firm sense of belief, of hope, of challenge and bravery, and not from timidity and not from a sense of being extremely careful as to not act. It will come from bravery. It will come from a sense of firmness, of being open and accepting the times and necessity as a whole. People have perished, people have died, and not a single drop of blood will be lost in this pursuit. So having said that, I wish you a happy rest of the week, a profound, a holy week, and a long weekend filled with joy, a sense of hope for a firm and lasting remedy. Take care and have a nice evening, all of you. Please send me your comments, and I'd like to hear from you. So from Hornby Island, have a good night. Bye-bye. I'll show you the full moon, and it's right behind the tree over there. So let's have the moon rise one step at a time. Thank you. Bye-bye.